DeathTech is there when you need it. And when you need DeathTech, there's nothing like it. The highest kill ratios of any weapons in the industry. And a commitment to excellence shared by each and every single employee of DeathTech. The pride goes far deeper than the metal casings on the bombs. The pride goes down deep into the software that goes into each and every one of our missile delivery systems. You can be proud that a company like DeathTech is working to serve you. And welcome to Tightline. It's a, I wonder, who's in the news? Well, I always thought it was funny that Muammar Gaddafi was a colonel, and he was the leader of a country. Usually the leaders are generals, but I guess that's not so weird when you stop to think that we had a colonel leading this country. Well, we have a great show tonight. We'll be having an author who wrote a poetry and prose called Tight Corners and What's Around Them. And thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sphincter, and this is my minute. Section 2.1, Introduction. A Dr. Sphincter Minute is a minute-long lecture covering theories and studies which I have developed. Each day is comprised of 1,440 minutes. Of those 1,440, 1,339 are spent with doing other things. 825 should be spent working, 325 should be spent sleeping, 212 are there for quality bathroom time. 27 minutes should be enough for meals. Hello, that leaves 1 minute for me, Dr. Sphincter, and this is my minute. Section 2.1, working in your spare time. What is spare time? Spare time is an inconsistent idea because it is based on the lack of good orientation and planning. Get yourself a good planning schedule and know when spare time occurs. This is when there is lack of good eye-to-hand coordination, leaving the house for no good reason, and sudden muscular relaxation.
Hello, and welcome once again to Tightline. Tonight, Tightline is brought to you by Dire Aid. If you need aid, get Dire Aid. Tonight we have an interesting author who has written a book called, if we get a close-up of this, Tight Corners and What's Around Them. His name is David Bromage, and he's with us today to discuss the book. Thank you for coming, Mr. How do you pronounce that?
Bromage.
Bromage is Bromage. Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about what started you writing poetry and prose and poems.
Well, I've been writing pieces of poetry and prose really since since grammar school.
Grammar school. Where was that?
That was in Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo. Mm-hmm. Did you grow up there?
That was my place of birth, and yes. I grew up in Buffalo.
Is your mother still alive?
I don't understand what that has to do with the book, but yes, she is.
Well, I was just wondering for our viewers and viewers at home might be interested.
She is still alive, that's correct.
What's I noticed that there's a, if we can get a close-up of this, there's a very interesting pattern. Did you decide on this? Whose work was this? These little cubes.
Well, I had a.
To get a close-up?
I had a professional artist design the cover.
Yes.
We didn't go into a lot of detail about the concepts.
It's a very handsome.
Thank you.
Cover.
It's just a cover.
Yes.
It just has the title.
Where did you come up with the title? For
Tight Corners and what's around them.
Yes.
Was a concept I had early in my college days.
Mm-hmm. Where did you go to college?
This was in Michigan State.
Michigan State.
Yeah, I moved to Michigan to go to school.
Is that a very big school?
It's about 2,000.
Did you live on the campus, or did
I was in a dormitory.
In a dormitory, really?
Throughout my.
Were you on the first floor, second floor?
This was the first floor. Well, anyway, about the title, Tight
Yes.
Corners, and what's around them, had a lot to do with the environment of school.
Yes.
It was a very tight, cornered environment.
Really?
And
it was productive environment, I suppose.
Well, there was some productivity. I wrote a great deal during that
Those were your
time.
most productive years in this tight these tight circumstances of the restrictive school rules, possibly.
Right, confined to my room and,
Yes.
and to the city and
Where you had
campus.
to do most of your
I
work.
wrote a great deal. It wasn't all work that I would publish, and,
Yes.
and I've only published a small portion of that work.
I noticed it was published first in 1974.
That's correct.
And you started writing it in what year?
Well, it's a compilation of
Oh,
work.
really?
Yes.
When did you? So it's a compilation of work from about 5 years or so, or would you say 10?
No, there was only about well, yeah, 4 or 5 years. It was from 1969 to about 1973, and
Yes.
and there were still some pieces that I wrote in ⁻74 that appear in this.
We, as a new special, excuse me, Mr. Bromage, but I just have to take a moment out of the show. As a new special feature of the new Tight Line, we will be having news segments. And this week's news segment is about a prophylactic delivery service in Madison, Wisconsin. Let's take a look at that. What do you say?
Hi, it's Michael from DeathTech Services. I have a delivery for you.
Come on up.
All right, thank you.
No, this man isn't delivering pizza. He's delivering condoms. That's because here at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, pizza emergencies are giving way to prophylactic emergencies.
What we did was we handed out flyers at the beginning, went around, posted them all over campus, and we went around and handed out some condoms to people.
3 students here have solved the age-old problem of having to buy condoms. With only one phone call, they'll deliver 2 varieties, lubed and non-lubed, right to your door.
It's Michael from DeathTech Services.
Oh.
Ready for you?
These guys will bring you a rubber sheath so you can let the moment speak for itself.
Do you have a check?
Yeah.
What we're trying to get across is a very professional and discreet service, including a major amount of confidentiality. If we went around parading what we do, then it would be against our professionalism.
See, I think of the male species, we do need all the help we can possibly get. And
Got a stiffy, wear a jiffy.
Oh, hello. And we're back. We're with, wasn't that a nice news segment?
I wouldn't know. I didn't see any of that work.
Oh, really?
None. I'm not aware of any monitors.
You didn't
in
watch
our
it
view.
beforehand?
No, I
No.
didn't see your
Well, we're back
news,
with Mr. David Bromage.
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 Bromage, and we're discussing his book, Tight Corners and What's Around Them. And what do you think, now when you say, and what's around them, most corners, is that some indication of the fear of approaching the unknown, of going around a corner and not knowing exactly what to expect?
No, it's not a reference to fear of what's around corners particularly.
Really?
It has to do with manipulations we go through
Yes.
in survival, in our sexual survival, in our survival for sanity.
Would you like to read some of the book?
Sure,
Mr.
I have a few
Okay.
examples I thought I'd share.
Now Mr. Bromage will read from the book. Whoops.
This is a piece I wrote shortly after leaving the university, and I met my first wife.
Oh, so you've been married several times.
I have had several wives.
Really, how many exactly?
Well, I'm now married to my third wife.
Third. What was the problem with the
No
other?
problem. It was. Oh, here. Let me just.
Oh,
get
so you
into this
express
work.
it in the I see.
When I told you I enjoyed it, I felt disgusted with myself.
Ooh.
Truly, it disgusted me.
Yes.
As I was afraid you'd see, but I couldn't bring myself to hurt you openly, so I told you it was great in such a way I could be pretty sure you'd find out later differently, and I was right.
So that is a description of an intimate relationship that you had with one of your wives.
This was, and that's, you're
And
privy to a certain candor that I don't usually
Yes.
reveal about my work.
And it
but,
was you were disgusted by it, really.
I felt disgusted with myself, not by it.
With yourself doing it like that.
No, you don't understand. It's quite unique to our relationship.
Yes.
With number one.
With number one.
Number one, my first wife.
Oh, your first wife. I see.
I don't want to say her name on the air, and I thought number one is a
Well, I
suitable
thought you were
pseudonym.
speaking of a different number one. I'm sorry, Mr. Brom. Well, could you read maybe possibly another passage from the book?
I have one noted.
You have a
I
problem?
seem to misplace my notes.
Did you? Whoa.
Here, I've
You find it? We're kind of pressed for
had
time.
a second.
You have.
Well, this is another piece. This was later when things
Yes.
were becoming dismantled.
Yes.
This is about a different person, by the way. This is not related to the first poem. She was urging him to seize the day, to see his hour had come. There would be no second chance. He would forever be a weak creature if he didn't stand on his own 2 feet. She leaned on him as she spoke, but then he was half supported by her. Now her husband was tugging at her sleeve, saying, "Just a minute." The man, startled, asked, "Whose minute?"
Would you like a Tums?
No, thank you. I'm fine.
I notice lots of times the subject of women pops up in your writings. Is there any particular reason for this, Mr. Bromage?
Well, there's no particular reason.
You find them disgusting?
There have been women that have entered into my sphere of experience, and I've reflected on those experiences in my writing, but there's no particular pattern to...
No pattern to... so you've had some bad experiences in the past?
No, they haven't been bad. All experiences are good. There are no bad experiences. There's just bad interpretations.
Well, how can you say that there's no bad experiences? You just said in the book that you were disgusted by a bad experience with a person, a woman.
The feeling of disgust I had was very useful. It wasn't bad. It was a vitality.
It was bad, but it became useful because it was bad. I think.
It was useful initially before its existence, even.
It was useful before its existence.
Yes,
Well, what does that mean?
all experience that you and I experience in life is sort of waiting for us to approach. It's waiting in the future. This our
can I see
meeting
this?
was predestined.
Do you know the Library of Congress number of this book, by any chance?
I don't know the Library of Congress number. Why do you
You don't?
ask? What,
You don't know the Library
That-
of Congress number
that has
of your
nothing
book?
to do with the work.
It has,
That's just a reference.
well, it has, if you don't know,
reference.
it's got, I think, quite a bit to do with the work. The Library of Congress, as we know, is a storehouse of the vastest amount of information in the world. And for you not to know exactly where you can find what you have done personally, I keep track of all the numbers of what I have done in my writings, my work.
You have writings that are
Yes.
in the Library of Congress.
Of course, yes.
Your
Well, maybe you
clinical
use,
studies.
maybe you
perhaps?
use a Dewey Decimal System, but that is kind of outdated, as many of us know, with the new computerized imaging systems and data processing systems.
Doctor, I'm not familiar with the filing system that various libraries have used to categorize my writings.
Really?
That's not what I'm here to discuss.
If we could get a close-up, once again, of the book. I notice there's a picture of you in the back here with a little biography. If we could get a close-up of this. If we get a close-up of the picture that you find here in the back of the book.
That was taken just after we had agreed on the publication with the publishing house.
Mm-hmm.
What's your question about?
Well, yeah, I notice here that you have a beard.
That's right. I was.
Why did you have a beard at that point? Were you trying to hide something?
I had the beard was just something that grew on me. I didn't. I shaved. I put on a suit to be on this program. I have beards at different times. It's of no significance to me whether I.
Well, are you aware?
I have no
of
problem
the,
that you shave. I don't know. Maybe you shave every day. Maybe you.
Well,
don't.
I shave 4 times a day, but I.
You shave 4 times a day.
Yes, well, I
don't
find it
shave 4 times
necessary.
a day.
I find it
But,
necessary
when I
to
present
keep
myself
clean.
to the public,
People with beards, I think, we all know what happened when everyone started growing beards. We immediately had a fascination with recreational vehicles and CB radios, and
I've
that completely
worn a beard,
destroyed
and
the
my beard
integrity
has in
of this
no way
country.
increased my interest in recreational vehicles or CBs, in which I have none.
Well, not necessarily that, but also drugs. Most people who take drugs wear beards.
I don't understand your relation between facial hair and interest in CB radios.
Okay.
I think that's not founded.
Okay.
But that's not my concern anyway.
Well, let's. Could I read some, possibly, of this book?
Well, if you'd like to, I guess.
Find a good passage here.
The book works best as read cover to cover. The various prose are linked.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Even though they're from various.
How hard it is to speak of the death of love, if that is the death and the emotion I do speak of here. There's an almost interminable search for the right word, and what makes it so difficult, if not an equal determination, not to disclose oneself to what the right word is. I would be absolutely clear at the onset on one point. I'm a man who doesn't always get what he wants, but possessed of such determination and willpower that I believe, had I wanted to be president, I would have come close. Well, that's an interesting passage that you realize the potential which you have in yourself. That we all have the potential to become presidents and statesmen and very powerful. But you've kept to just writing poetry.
I have. That was not particularly a reflection of my aspirations.
See, I had thought from the title of the book, at first glance, I had thought the book was more about design, interior design of rooms and buildings. Like you might find a tight corner and what's around them in the next room. I had not the. I am a fan of poetry. I do write some of my own, as a matter of fact.
Well, my interest with
and I thought it had been technical, of a technical nature.
No, it's not technical, other than the technical experience we have in life, and tight corners certainly are a thing that we encounter.
What kind of corners do you see to be the tightest corners?
Well, the tightest corners would have to be the corners imposed by human relationships.
Yes.
Which are so tight, in fact, that we may not be able to maneuver through the door of our apartment or through the door of the studio.
Well,
there may be a tight, cornered relationship we're establishing which will not let us leave this stage, potentially, and that's something we have to accept when it happens.
So you find these tight corners to be something to avoid? Or
just be prepared that you may be in a tight corner, and to be at
would you rather have a corner be
with your tight corner?
Be tighter or less tight?
The tightness is really irrelevant. It's the openness that you experience.
It's irrelevant.
Things with, exactly.
So you feel that the tightness is irrelevant to the situation of being in a tight corner?
It's one aspect of.
How could you write a book called Tight Corners and find that tightness is irrelevant to relationships?
It could have been many titles. Tight corners.
Life experiences.
Tight corners is a useful title because it's something that people identify with. So
people identify with it because they understand tightness and they want to be tighter people, and they're not interested in trying to avoid the tighter relationships. I think are the better ones. If you say you're tight with someone, that is a good thing to say.
Yeah, that's
that means
not what
you
I mean, though. When
working closely with them, and you're not.
When somebody's tight with you, that has nothing to do with being in a tight corner with them. It's just the opposite. It's not a tightness of a binding nature. It's a tightness that's open.
Well, yes, it certainly is. It's a binding and close-knit relationship.
You don't feel that you experience openness in your close relations?
Well, you experience openness in a tight, binded way. You don't. You're not open with just anyone off the street.
If I can do anything with my work, I'm trying to expand people's ideas and bring them to a more open understanding of their experience.
Well, it seems like the it's I'm not sure I understand.
Had any impression of that from the work you read surprises me. I don't see why you don't.
Well, I don't see why you feel that you must avoid these tight corners, and you feel that. Relationships that are tight are unacceptable and not.
I'm not involved in avoiding anything. I've been open to all experience.
Well, yes, you have been avoiding my questions, and you've been kind of getting off the subject at times. And I'm just trying to find out what you exactly mean when you say that relationships. You're pushing yourself into a tight corner, and why this is something that you want to avoid. Especially if you've written a book called Tight Corners and What's Around Them. If I see a tight corner, I immediately want to see what's around it. I'm not afraid. I want to probe what's around the corner.
So you think that you can prepare yourself for experience and avoid pain and suffering? Is that your idea, that you're going to be able to prepare yourself in some way?
Well, I think now you're getting philosophical. There's no need to get philosophical. I'm dealing with a real issue. I'm not dealing with.
It is very real. It's everyday experience.
A philosophic issue, like
whether we're going to constrict
existentialism or something.
Constrict our experience.
We're constantly trying to constrict our experience, because that's what life is about. You don't go around life life is made up of constrictions and constricting experiences. Your body is put into a tight frame and cell. There are millions of cells in the body, and in each cell is a tight little constrictive framework. And that's how things work. They don't work if things are just spilling out all over the place. So I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to get at.
You seem to be trying to...
Do you eat meat? Or are you a...
Do I eat meat?
Yes.
I eat no meat.
You don't eat meat. I didn't think so.
And that has very little to do with our discussion.
You tipped me off very early that if you could get a close-up of his lapel is folded over. I didn't mention it earlier because I wasn't sure if you wanted it to be like that or not, but this is a television show, and for things to be kind of sloppily placed.
I walk into a situation without concern of total preparedness.
Yes.
I'm prepared as I see fit, and my avoidance of red meat and other red foods.
You avoid red foods.
I avoid any red foods.
Why is that?
Well, I feel the red is an influence that's going to be limiting to me.
Why is it limiting?
Red, it has
red is the
amber
very
color.
It's an important color.
It blocks out most other colors.
It's an important color because it tells us that there is danger approaching. If you don't like red, how can you say tight corners and what's around them when it seems like you're speaking of danger? And red is a color that signifies danger and fear. Possibly.
It's like a shutoff. Exactly. Red is like the stop sign, the shutoff.
Yes. Go on, please.
And the shutoff is something I'm cutting out. Cutting out the red meat, cutting out the shutoff.
Cutting out the shutoff. What do you want to shut off?
Well, there's very little that... No, what are you saying? I'm not shutting anything off. I didn't say anything about shutting anything off.
Well, you've been saying it all night, I think.
No, I haven't been talking anything about shutting off. I'm open to what you're saying, but I feel that you've missed my point entirely.
Well, you've been too open. That's why you've missed the point. And I think that we have to leave you now because I can see that this interview is not going. This interview just isn't going anywhere.
And
because
what's around them, from cover to cover, with an open mind, open to the ideas that I'm presenting.
I have an open mind, but
no, I can see that you've restricted yourself to a very narrow.
No, you're the one that has closed your mind to new ideas and concepts. I have a very open mind when it comes to study and basic nature of things and basic research, basic chemistry, for example. I'm very open to that. And if you come along trying to tell people that tight relationships and working in tight areas is bad, I am not open to that. I'm sorry, Mr. Bromage, and we'll have to leave you now. And we'll have to come back next week, and we'll have hopefully a more interesting topic. I have asked the producers for some more tighter control.
Well, I hope that you give them more opportunities.
Yes, I've asked for tighter control over the show so we don't run into these kinds of problems. I am sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry too. I seem to have wasted my time.
I'm trying to get some more interesting people on: chemists, doctors, biologists, people in many fields of study who don't get a chance to come out and